How do you do, exiles? 3.26 is upon us, and we're here to teach and help people make divines. Because that's what PoE is all about. Forget the fun. Who cares about fun? Builds? Who cares? We're here to make money. That's what we're going to show you how to do today. I will try to do some like decent timestamps. Because for the veterans, most of this is going to be irrelevant because you're already going to know what to do. So I will try to do some timestamps. I'm just going to say this early. If you guys like this kind of content, please shoot me a like, subscribe, share the video, all that beautiful stuff. Under no obligation to do so, but it would put a smile on my face. So I really appreciate that. So first things first, we have some helpful links, PoEDB, to look at mods. And then we have the official wiki. And then we have the PoE Regex. And as of today's announcement, we're getting a longer character length in the search bar. So a higher capacity for more Regex. And this is kind of a slight buff to anything search-wise, including Rog for searching for bases, like easy access to bases. So this is really nice. And then the cover section just has some like random stuff, and then just general advice. I would take the time to read this. It doesn't take long. This is like some of the tips that I've kind of put together with my time doing Rog and all my experience with Rog and some of the stuff that I gathered from the PoE Reddit, because I did make a post and some people made some suggestions. And here we go. First, we're going to talk about logbooks. Now, I have a whole section here, and but I think I'm going to show you the basics in the game. I think that's going to be a little bit better. I'm more of a visual person myself, so every logbook I do in a certain way. I tend to go and buy a kind of a bulk of 20 logbooks, and then I'll just run that 20, and then I'll start crafting. And then when I run out of currency, run another 20, do some more crafting, until, you know, my Rog window is like as full as it can be. And then I go do content and I wait for stuff to sell. That's kind of my process. So first things first, early game, definitely want to run Rog as white. Any logbook that you do, just do it white. It's a lot easier. It takes less time, and you know, it's early game. If you're not solidified in your build, it just makes sense to run it white. You don't need to be too min-maxy about it. If you're focusing bosses later on, you really want that rolling currency. It's definitely worth alching it and getting as much item quant as you can, because that will affect how much rolling currency is dropped from the specific boss that you are doing. First things first, what I like to do is I like to bless orb all of my logbooks, and we want to do this to get the implicit number, i.e. the 17 and 39 on the top end mods right there on the black side. We want those to be as high as possible within their range. And this is the range right here. So we have 10 to 40 and 20 to 50. And so I wouldn't worry too much about min-maxing the highest possible you can get for every single logbook. You want it to be in a fairly decent range, you know, above half on each of the ranges, and just run with that. You know, I wouldn't waste too much time, too much currency trying to min-max these. You kind of just want to run them and get them done and get your artifacts and get to crafting. At least that's the approach that I take personally. And so like a good range for this one would be like 30% and 30%. I think that would be really good. And so you see here, we got a 30, 33, and a 48. This is almost exactly what we're looking for. Right, we're almost at the top, the very tippy top of the second mod, and we're pretty near the top of the range, which is 40% on the top mod. So this is exactly what we're looking for. You just run these whites as we just previously stated, and now you have a completed logbook. Next thing that we do is we go to Danig. Show expedition map, plop that in, order the chalice, and we're off to the races. So what I like to do is I like to hit my tab, and I like to scope around. You see, we have pretty much everything. We got kind of lucky. We got everything we need in this map to go over. So I look at the map and I start thinking about kind of the direction and the flow that I want this to go. We definitely want to hit most of the stuff up here. And it doesn't look like we have a ton of currency markers in this one. So we're going to be able to kind of squeeze around and grab maybe some other things. But we also have to consider, we also want to do the boss, and we also want to do, this is the boss, by the way. You can see the icon on the map right there. And then we also want to hit this underground area. Underground area is usually a set of events or an event. And then at the end, you get chests. A lot of the times, those chests are artifact chests. And artifacts is the sole reason that we are here. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start right here. I'm fine with picking up this. And we want to kind of put it on the outer edge of the explosion range. And then we're going to hit our very first currency marker. This is the only reason that we're here. We want to hit as many of these as humanly possible and pick up some worthwhile remnants on the way. Now, when I say worthwhile, I definitely don't mean additional rare weapons or ritual splinters or talismans. Those are pretty crappy. However, 25% increased pack size is very nice, but I'm not a fan of that mod, and I'm trying to go fast. I'm not trying to get bogged down. And so we can look over here. There's a currency marker over here, but it's a bit out of the way, so I think I'm going to skip that one. And we're just going to mosey. We're just going to mosey on down this way. And so here we have all damage for monsters can shock, essentially just a shock-related remnant. This one is definitely worth picking up. Most everyone should be, should have their immunities set. You want to try to be immune to almost everything that you can. So this should be a non-issue for most builds. Again, to maximize our range, we're going to put it right at the edge of the explosion range. And we also got a currency marker there too, which is perfect. And then we're going to come over here, and I only see, 4 flags here. So this is not, that's not a remnant that we want. None of these remnants are remotely good. So I'm just going to stick this out into nothing. As you can see, there are some destructible stuff and destructible areas on certain layouts, because there are multiple layouts for these logbooks. You will have walls that can be destroyed that allow you to get into another section of the map. And a lot of times those are definitely worth going for, but not if they're egregiously out of the way. So I would just keep that in mind. This one's definitely worth getting. We should be able to get 2 with 1 explosion plus another remnant. And then this one, we're going to get a grouping of 2. So that gives us our 4. And then we have 9 explosives left. That's our max range. More splinter stuff, which is like a snort fest. We don't care about that. And then another currency marker. And then you see right here, we have a jewelry flag that's going to give a chest that drops jewelry. But if you notice, it's white, which means it's awful. It's base. It's terrible. We don't like that. And you see here, we have a divination card flag. It's rare. So it's certainly of higher value. And then I don't know. And then we have right here a unique. I believe this is Legion. And this one is, if you are going to go out of your way for a flag, this is the one that you want to get. It is the highest value chest, not including the artifact flags that we're really here for. And so let's go pick up this flag. And then you'll notice we're getting kind of towards the end of the line here. So at this point, I'm just reaching for whatever I can get. All damage can poison. That's a no-brainer. That's easy. Got another currency flag. One more, we might actually be able to hit this one like all the way over here. And we did. Now we're full circle. And so we have every currency flag on the map, plus the underground area, plus the boss. And we are good to hit our detonate explosives. And then each one will pop kind of at the same time. Or excuse me, in sequence, not at the same time. And you just go around. And you just go around and kill stuff. And that's it. And you go into the chamber. And then we have ourselves a little event, little kill event. Ooh, look at the AoE on that last raid. I love it. And then you get your rewards. And it's gonna be a mix of a lot of stuff. You see, we got some exceptional artifacts, which is really what we're looking for. The other stuff is very common. You will get them with time, and you'll get a lot of them. But the exceptionals are pretty rare. They're fairly rare. You'll have more than enough to craft with, especially if you're doing them in batches of 20. But if you're just starting out, do batches of 5 or 10 and craft a little, and do a little here, a little there. You don't have to go balls to the wall if you don't want to, but I respect you if you do. And then, yeah, you just kind of go through this whole bit of nonsense, kill stuff. And as you can see, these mobs are not very difficult. Even on a League Start character with barely any gear, the logbook monsters, if you don't take like really nasty remnants and you play your cards right and you don't overjuice it too hard, they're very easy to deal with. However, in maps is a different story. Maps they get kind of crazy. I'm not gonna bother with the boss because it's annoying and it's a long fight. And I really recommend everyone just buy your rolling currency, your raw currency. You might do a couple of fights in the beginning of the league, but for the most part, I like spend a div on the financier, get all my raw currency for a div, and we're off to the races. I don't have time to waste dealing with the Rog boss. It's an annoying multi-phase fight. It sucks. Don't even bother. And so now we have our currency. That's how you run logbooks. It's very simple, very easy peasy. Follow the blue flags, get as much of them as you can, and Bob's your uncle. Okay, let's go back to the other end of the guide. So all that information is right here, accompanied by the remnants that are worthwhile taking and the mods that you want to be looking for logbooks. Now, when I do batches of 20, I don't really care what the mods are. I don't care what the layout is. I'm just in there to get flags and then get out. That's really all I care about. I personally don't think it's worth min-maxing to the infinitesimal degree the perfect mods and the perfect layout for every logbook. Just my recommendation is find a logbook, run it, and then start crafting, because I just don't have time to waste. And as far as the Atlas passives go, I have a full breakdown of every expedition passive. Preface, we don't have patch notes, so they may tweak Expedition a little bit, but I doubt it. Expedition's in a very good spot right now, and I don't see them changing it anytime soon. I tend to go for Hunt for Answers early on, just to get the percent chance rolling. And then I love to start with Ancient Decay, because it just makes the map encounters a lot easier. I also want to mention that these Atlas passives do not affect logbooks in any way. Logbooks are completely standalone from the Atlas passives. And then once I get strong enough, I dip on Ancient Decay. We don't really need it any longer. Ancient writings, very important. The remnants become more powerful. You get a 30% chance at an additional suffix. It's really nice. It's like a must-have. You have to have it. Distinguished Demolitionist, amazing. It essentially allows you to just blanket. It's this one specifically is very nice. if your favorite map is like a narrow map, like say Toxic Sewers, but you still want to run Expedition, this is a very good node to take. And I think this node is worth a lot more than Extreme Archaeology. This one is best on Dune or Strand, any kind of open map, open area. Our Extreme Archaeology is 100% the way to go. But I would push some extreme caution, because if you're running, Fire, Frost, Lightning, Fizz, Chaos, whatever build you're running, there are remnants that you might pick up that are immune, that grant the mobs immunity to whatever. Could be Fire, could be Fizz, whatever. Make sure to check that you're not picking up an immunity to the damage type that you're doing. Because you might, carpet an entire area. It's going to be a juicy Expedition map, and then you break it, and it's a real feels bad. You just wasted time, you wasted money, and it's nobody likes that. Buried knowledge, mandatory. You pretty much just have to have it. And as far as the 4-pronged wheel, this allows you to choose between increased chances of Tujen, Rog, Gwenin, and Danig. For my purposes, I'm doing Danig and Rog, but for those that want to do something else, I would absolutely advise you to do Danig and one of the others. You don't need to do 3 of them. Do Danig and Tujen, Danig and Rog, or Danig and Gwenin. So groups of 2. Because Danig is going to be able to supply you with any artifact from any of the 4 guys. And any of the 3 guys and 1 gal. Because Gwenin's a female. And that's pretty much the Atlas passage. It's really cut and paste. It's not very difficult. And if you want to know more, you can read everything that I have to say about them there. Now let's get into the juicy bits. Every single one of these tabs has a list of probably at least the top 4 bases in the game currently. If you see number 7 says T1, the best bases start at the bottom and move up to T4, the best. This is the same. Some of these bases only have 3 of them, and some only have 2. So Elegant Round Shield, that's our best base. Then it goes to Cardinal, Supreme, then Mirrored, so on and so forth. There are some exceptions, whereas like, say, Fossilized Spirit Shield, it is an ES base, a pure int base, and it is very unique that it's a minion shield. And I love to roll on these all the time. But take some of this with a grain of salt. The Fossilized Spirit Shield is kind of an exception, because for certain builds, this is their T1 base. This is the best base in the game for them. Whereas the majority, unless you're not playing a minion build, it's the Titanium Spirit Shield. So just to go over a few important mods on helmets. Number 1, massive moneymaker. +2 to level of all minion skill gems. And if you happen to be able to pair that with spell suppression, oh, that's money. But you'll come to find with Rog, a single good mod is not enough to make a sale. Right? You want really good items. You want res. T1 life, or as high of life mod as you can get. An open prefix is always preferable. An open suffix is definitely preferable. You want at least one open mod slot for somebody to craft something that they specifically need for their build. We want to play this dance of leaving an open mod slot and not maxing our mod slots on any of our raw gear. It's going to happen, and yes, those items will still sell, but having an open mod slot will increase the value. And I also, I believe throughout this whole guide, I list some of the most important prefixes, or some of the most important mods that go in a lot of this gear. So for helmets, you get +1 to socketed AoE gems, which is a very nice mod. Open suffixes always, is always nice for resistances or attributes. Early on, most of these bases will work. If you find a base that's not on this list, that means it's not the greatest base. But if it has good bones and it has good mods already on it in the ROG window, it's, especially early game or early league, it's definitely worth spending some currency on. But I wouldn't blow a huge wad on it, because it's gonna get replaced by that person pretty quickly. I'm a bit of a snob personally, so I tend to prioritize the top 2 bases. But early league is definitely worth considering the entire base pool within reason, right? Nobody wants to do like a T, like the lowest tier base, even if it has good mods, because it's just not going to scale well. So these are kind of things that you have to think about, right? And then we also have some general tips and stuff. 6 is an example of some like really 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 good looking mods. So you get a res with chaos res and Ellie res, and then you got T1, and then you got an armor roll, and then you got T1 life, and then you might end up getting an attribute with an open prefix, or maybe you fill the prefix and leave the suffix. There's a lot of ways to skin the cat here, and everyone needs different things, which is the beauty of ROG, because you're going to get so many different types of gear to sell. So you're always going to be selling something. And I want to make a note of note 5 is be wary of skipping too much. Finding a piece of gear with really good prefixes, you'll want to protect those mods. If you skip, you may be forced into re-rolling and or removing those mods altogether. So a lot of times when you're crafting with ROG, you can either skip, and we'll go over this here in a little bit. You can either skip, or you can do the craft that he's giving you. And if your prefixes are like really, really, like really good, let's say you have +2 minion, T1 life, I want to protect those. And so if it's a craft that's like a whatever craft, I'm willing to spend the currency so that the next craft I'm not forced into. Because if you skip, you're forced to do the next craft. And a lot of times that craft will be to reroll the exact mods that you're trying to keep. So be very wary of skipping too much. That's why it's so important when you're doing logbooks to hit every single artifact flag you can, because you will be using a ton of artifact currency, a ton. Same thing, kind of like all this stuff that we just talked about for helmets, all of this applies to everything, right? Look at the base, see if the mods are good. Even on a top tier base, if it's just mod vomit and it's a hodgepodge of all kinds of different stuff, I might not really be all that interested in spending the currency to roll on, because essentially at that point you're just hoping to remove or re-roll mods. And whereas with a piece of gear that already has a good set of mods, you can start protecting, you can start really strategizing how you want to craft that. And I realize that it's RNG for what's given, but there is a way to do ROG, and there is a way to not do ROG, i.e. skipping way too much and being forced to craft and you just lose all your stuff. Chest pieces are another one that you really want a prefix for the Gravicious % life % mana, or the Fizz taken as, I believe that's still in the game, I can't remember exactly. But at the bare minimum, the % life is quite nice, and it is definitely worthwhile keeping an open prefix. Some gear benefits more from open suffixes, others benefit more from an open prefix. I personally don't find that chest pieces sell all that well, but if they are like really good rolls, they can sell for quite a bit of divine. But generally speaking, they're not that valuable in terms of the time that you want to be spending crafting. Mainly because they almost always never come 6-linked. You can technically 6-link on ROG, but it's extraordinarily rare. I don't think I've ever done it. And that's kind of where the value of a good chess piece comes in. You can have a great chess piece, but if it's early game, you're not really going to have the fusings to 6-link it, and nobody else is either, really. So take that with a grain of salt. Do with that what you will. I find of the bases that do sell, Twilight Regalia, Conquest, Laminar, Necrotic Armor, and Royal Plates do quite well. Unless if maybe something changes in 3.26. But Strength and Int bases, they're just kind of worthless Honestly, I on any piece of gear besides boots, I would recommend not rolling on anything strength and int based. Um, they just don't sell well in my experience. But that's just me personally. The rest of them are pretty much good to go. And also, we have the same notes here. Chaos Res is king. Be wary of skipping. The fact that I prioritize the T1 and T2 bases. As the league progresses, you want to be more exclusive on the bases that you're rolling, right? Because people start upgrading their gear, and nobody really, I certainly wouldn't want to upgrade to a piece of gear that is of a lower base, but maybe better mods. But I'm also a snob, so maybe don't listen to me in that particular situation. Gloves are also pretty valuable. The same mod that we can get prefixes crafted from the crafting bench, I believe it is a betrayal mod, and hopefully it's still in the game, is +1 to socketed AoE, proj, and or melee. These are quite valuable. So if you can catch yourself with an open prefix, always quite nice. And obviously open suffixes for spell suppression, attributes, res, and any kind of thing like that. And then pretty much the same stuff as we've seen more or less before. And then we have boots. Okay, so boots are very interesting to craft, right? Because you want one of two things. You either want to have an open prefix, so you can craft a movement speed, and like you can craft a movement, like a betrayal mod for movement speed, which also gives you other things like immunity to chill or onslaught on kill. Or you want to have an IA level 85 plus pair of boots and have 35% movement speed base. That's essentially what you're looking for on boots. And then obviously you want T1 life, armor ES or evasion roll, and really good suffixes like spell suppression, T1 LE, chaos, like super high regen, life regeneration rate, right? Like a good pair of Leviathan Greaves, T1 life, open prefix, T1 flat or T1%, LE chaos, percent life regen. That's a daggum good pair of boots. You can't really go wrong with that. That's going to sell for several divine. And you just have to be wary because the prefixes are single-handedly the most important mod on a pair of boots, full stop. So either you get a pair of 35%, 30 to 35% movement speed. 30 will do, 35 is going to be more valuable. Or you make sure that you have an open prefix for a betrayal craft. You do either one of those things and your money. Now, shields, I also find that shields do not sell very well in any way, shape, or form. I don't recommend selling them at all, with the exception of the Fossilized Spirit Shield. I always roll on these because when they hit, oh boy, do they hit. Minion damage, T1 life, ES. You get minion life, minion res, you get +1 to all minion skills. I mean, when these shields hit, they hit big. They hit humongous. We're talking 20, 25, 40 div on like a really, really exceptional fossilized Rog Craft. Money. Absolute money. And even early game, a +1 with some decent rolls is going to net you some good early chaos. Now on to the jewelry. Rustic sashes. I mean, unless they have insane mods, I really wouldn't bother with it. I really stick to heavy belts. Chain belts are okay, and leather belts. I really just stick to these two, and then a crystal belt. If it shows up, I will definitely roll on that, because that is the potential for some very high energy show rolls. And we also have a list of, just suitable crafting mods that you can get from the crafting bench that, you want to consider, leaving open. I personally think that the suffixes on belts are way more important to leave open then prefixes, you always want to try to get a really good life roll, because the life craft from the bench is not nearly as good as a natural life mod or like a T1 life. And so these are the kind of mods that we're looking for, you know, especially for the heavy belt, T1 strength, life regen, some good flask mods, chaos res, life, especially early game. Tri-res belts are very popular and they will net you a profit. And this just gives you an idea of kind of what to look for and what your options are if you end up crafting a belt. And oops, I accidentally filled my suffix through no fault of my own, but I do have an open prefix, and this is some of the stuff that I can craft on it to make more money. Or you can just leave it empty for the buyer to craft on. There's also a lot of value in that. I tend personally to craft on every open mod slot so that the buyer can see, because sometimes you can like glaze over it. And when you're looking at the trade website, it's very clearly a different color that this is a craftable mod. And every craftable mod can be replaced with something else. And so that visual clarity kind of helps, you know, make the item sell. Because, oh, okay, so that technically has an open mod slot. It's craftable. It can be whatever I want it to be, right? So keep that in mind. And that's something we'll go over as well, like window shopping and kind of the strategy with that. Now for rings, I have some very important notes up here. Not every ring that Rog offers is in this list, and they aren't in this list because they don't sell very well. They're hyper niche, kind of hard to roll, kind of hard to get right. They got to be really specific, and I don't really think that they're worth rolling on personally. And this list is quite exhaustive, and it's just like the belts. These are some of the mods that you're looking for. These are the suitable crafting mods, and these are the extremely valuable crafting mods. So just like the boots, prefixes on rings are highly sought after. If at all possible, you want to always have a ring that has either T1 ES or T1 life, and at minimum a single open prefix. And we want that because an incredibly valuable crafting tool or crafting mod is the cost to non-channeling skill, like the mana cost reduction to non-channeling skills. Essentially, it's literally just a flat reduction. Like if you're a melee guy, your attack costs you 40 mana. Now it might cost you 34 mana, right? So 6 or 7. That's the range. And this mod will make a good ring phenomenal, especially early league, even late game. It almost feels like a ring is not fully complete unless it has an open prefix, because that mod alone is hyper valuable to almost every build in the game that didn't solve their particular mana issues early enough, or it's not built in. And they're utilizing this mod to bring their mana cost down so their build can function. So this mod, highly sought after, very important. You will increase the value of your ring extensively. And that goes for almost every base type, I would say, except for bone rings. Bone rings are a different animal. These are some of the mods that you're looking for. This is the Minion ring. These are notoriously hard to roll on Rog, but I have found myself in situations where they've rolled extremely well, and I just make like an easy 20 div. Just boop, here you go, 20 div, and it sells like that. It sells in a heartbeat, right? Because Minion stuff naturally, because it has more mods than just your traditional base item, it is inherently harder to roll. And that's the beauty of Rog, because we just roll it for free. We don't have to spend any currency other than the logbook that we buy, right? So yeah, bone rings are awesome. So as long as you read what I have given you, you will succeed. You will absolutely succeed. Now for amulets, it's a bit of a different story. The amulet slot in particular is hyper competitive. against unique items. And it has to be a very specific combination of mods for it to be pretty valuable. Like really valuable. And one of those mods is +1 level to all skill gems, or +1 level to fire, cold, lightning, spell, chaos, blah, blah, blah. Those are exceedingly rare mods. Not as rare, but exceedingly rare. And you'll only find a handful of them a league while you're crafting with Rog. And yes, there are exceptions. There are some amulets that can be rolled without that mod, and that will still sell. And if you do find an amulet that's got good mods, I would still recommend rolling on it. But I really wouldn't spend the majority of your time here. I personally don't roll on amulets. I don't find that they sell very well. And I find rolling them to be tedious. And I find that I fail the craft almost... Not almost always, but a lot of the time I end up with a piece of gear that's kind of worthless. So if you're kind of a veteran with Expedition and Rog, you can definitely make something out of this. But for anyone just starting Rog, just stay away from amulets. It's not worth it. Another thing is weapons. Weapons are also notoriously hard to roll. And if you were going to roll on a weapon, I would almost exclusively say roll on spine bows and imperial claws only. The mods are very simple. You just want flat, fire, cold, and lightning. Suffixes, attack, crit, and crit damage. It is so important, just like on boots and rings. But swapped, you want to have an open suffix on the bow or the claw. So you can craft crit percent or attack speed or whatever. But you always want to, it's very valuable to have an open suffix. Or you could let it ride if you get the right craft with Rog and, play the dice. But these mods are pretty much the same for the Imperial Claw, flat, fire, cold, and lightning, attack speed, crit percent, and crit damage. I think in all my time doing Rog, I've made one really good claw and one really good bow. They're very hard to craft. You got to get the right set of crafts from Rog. You have to have the right RNG, and it doesn't happen often, but when it does, it definitely pays off in spades. Now for fizz weapons, unless I'm finding a T1, T2, or T3% fizz mod already on the item, I'm not even going to bother rolling on it. Because for any fizz weapon to be good, it has to have percent fizz, it has to have hybrid fizz, and it has to have flat fizz. If it's not all three of those, then it's just not going to be worth anything. So these are incredibly hard to craft, and they have to be on the right base, because if they're not on the right base, then you're going to get it lower damage. So I wouldn't recommend rolling on these unless you see one with a T1 to T3 roll on the percent fizz, and then you can kind of roll the dice from there. I think I've only made one, and I've crafted a lot. I've only made one really good axe. So it is possible to do, but I wouldn't recommend it as a newbie to the whole Rog universe. Also in the cover sheet is a link to the Path of Regex. And we have right here Expedition. And we have Gwenin, and we have a whole bunch of other stuff, access and regex stuff that we can use for our new 250 character limit on our search bar. So that's very nice. It's extremely welcome, especially for those Expedition players. Really, for anyone that uses the search bar, it's super nice. Now, I don't have a ton of currency, but I do have a little bit. And I can always buy. As a matter of fact, let's just do that right now. I will be right back. Okay, we're back. So this is your lesser, greater, grand, and exceptional. These are the rare ones. These are the most common. And then you have your rolling currency, right? So I just kind of scope around. I just kind of look at stuff like this right here. This is what I like to call mod vomit. It's just a hodgepodge of random mods that kind of work together but kind of don't. Some of it's high tier, some of it's low tier, and it just doesn't jive. It looks like crap. You can tell visually it doesn't work. Like there's a method to the madness, which you'll see soon enough. It's good. We want to see like nice, clean mods. Right, we got a lot of weapons. Thicket bows are okay to craft on, same as the spine bow, but they're not great. So we're gonna re-roll, you know, until we find something good. Beggars can't really be choosers early game. Yeah, I'm definitely rolling on that. Now, like I said before, it's important to protect our prefixes if they're good. These are pretty good prefixes. I'm more than willing to re-roll my suffixes so that I'm not forced to re-roll my prefixes in the next round, especially when we already have an open prefix for that really important mana craft from Betrayal. So at this point, I'm in like full prefix protection mode. And we just have to hope that the suffixes we end up with are good. So we're going to upgrade this. Oh, man. We hit the mother load. The best outcome here is we get T1. It's a 50-50 shot because the other mods are already T1. So let's see what we get. Too bad. Add a prefix modifier 5 times, but only keep the best outcome. This is a skip. Like I said, we want to protect our prefixes at this point. This is a very nice ring early game. This is a definite skip. And unfortunately, we got the fill all modifier slots. And so at this point, we just take the item. We have a very nice, 4 mod ring that we can now do this. We can come over here. We can do our non-channeling craft. And look at that. We got 7. Now this has certainly increased in value. Now that we have an open slot, we can take an exalted or and slam our last suffix and see, maybe we get something good. We got cold damage. Very unfortunate. Now this makes this item a bit more niche. Or somebody's just like, whatever, I don't care about the cold damage. This ring is great. It's exactly what I need. And now you can sell for buku money. I'm going to see what this is worth. So without the cold damage, this ring is worth 12 divine. So I know I didn't do any editing here. I literally just swapped from the Excel, from the Google Doc to this, and this was our first craft. So, this is a very nice ring. This is a very impressive ring. This is a multi-divine ring early game. Now, you're not going to be able to sell this unless you want to sit on it for a couple of weeks or something and sell it for 10, 15 div. Or you can make some early money, sell it for 3 or 4 div, maybe 5 div early league, because not everyone's going to have like a ton of currency. And this is going to fly off the shelf. This is going to fly out of your inventory. And you're just going to make so much easy money. It's ridiculous. Right? You remember that item that I said was mod vomit? Look at how clean these mods are. Life, double res, rarity, craft. This is a good looking piece of gear. This is what you're looking for. Mods that make sense visually. It just, when you just, with enough time, you know it when you see it. You'll understand. You'll come to understand what I mean by mod vomit. So let's see what else we can find. Glorious plate. What our base says. Glorious is a T4 base. No, thank you. Reroll. Nope. Still nothing good. You're gonna spend a lot of time rolling. I'm just throwing that out there. You guys need to be prepared. No, that's not a good enough base. None of these are good. You'll always want to check helmets. You can just type Minion right here if you want to, or you can just look around and look for the helmets, because there's been, I'm sure, quite a few times where I've rolled over a Minion helmet, and that feels bad. Lots of weapons. This is just a bricked window. Nothing really good here. I don't recommend rolling on jewels, not until later, until you just have some currency to just kind of have some fun with, or some artifacts rather. I think we'll craft on this and see what we can get going. Always worth doing. It might hit a mod that you want to keep. I think it's worth. Remove the 2 modifiers with the lowest modifier level. I'm going to go ahead and skip this because I would like to keep that life. And then we got another upgrade. Oh, very nice. Remove a single mod. No, we want to keep our life for sure. Another upgrade. goodness.
It's your lucky day.
Okay. An important note here. Okay. You only have a limited amount of crafts with Rog on any particular piece of gear. If at all possible, you want to avoid removing all prefix or all suffix, because then you're just going to have to spend more crafts, more of your limited crafts, to get those mods back on the piece of gear, when you would rather just re-roll, keep the mods, and just get a new set of mods. Right? One way is less efficient, one way is more efficient. This way is the least efficient. So we're going to skip and hope that we don't re-roll our prefixes. You're taking a gamble here. The smart move is to just upgrade, keep your prefixes safe, instead of doing what I'm doing. This is a gamble. Reroll values, that's fine.
This one's a bit banged up.
Reroll values, these are just like generic crafts, kind of whatever. This is a pretty bad piece of gear. To make this piece of gear worth anything, you'd have to null off the suffixes, and it's just not worth the time. The prefixes are quite good, and the region is actually pretty okay, but it's not really the best. I would just vendor trash this, honestly. Just my personal opinion. Evasion pieces, I don't think sell very well. I don't tend to roll on most evasion pieces, but that's just me. Looking for a really nice base. Oh, here we go. Amethyst rings. I always roll on. It doesn't matter how bad the mods are, because if they hit, they hit huge. Chaos rings sell for a lot of money. You can easily make a pretty decent ring and get 2 div here, 3 div there, 1 div here. You know, it really starts to add up. So this is gonna make us reroll our prefixes. This is definitely worth. That's not bad. Those are pretty good mods. Those are pretty decent. Definitely want to add a suffix, but we have a problem, right? We don't have an open prefix, and that's okay. Don't be like, I don't want you to think that because you don't have an open prefix that the item won't sell. It will absolutely sell to somebody. It may not be worth as much, but chaos is still important to have. You want to mix up chaos and divines. Let's go ahead and add another suffix here. Let's just see what happens. That's not bad. So now we're in a dilemma. We have 5 really good mods and then 1 really terrible mod. That region mod is awful. It's terrible. I want it out of here. So I can skip and see what our next craft is. And it might be one that gets rid of that mod, or it might be one that rerolls our prefixes, or it might be the same mod, the same craft that we have here. So it's up to you whether or not you want to take that gamble. I'm going to go ahead and skip because I want to see if I can just get rid of that mod. Okay, it's going to add quality. Okay, now we got almost T1s across the board. Very close. Reroll modifier values of prefixes. So what that means is the range. You see 40, 44, 47 for energy shield, 34 to 78, 100 to 114. That's going to re-roll all these values. So we're at 44, 76, and 106.
Allow me to take my ruined hammer to this thing.
All right, that's an improvement. I think at this point we're getting close to the end of the craft. I think that this would sell for a pretty decent amount of money. I'm not willing to roll the dice on losing 2 to get rid of 1. So I'm going to skip this and see what happens. Reroll the modifiers of a single modifier. If you have the currency, just do it. That's fine. And then now you have like a pretty damn amethyst ring, actually. So it says that the only other mod, or the only other one that's on the market, is 100 divine. I don't think, obviously this is not worth 100 divine. This probably has probably an open prefix for the craft and a much better suffix than the regen, which is why he's asking so much. And it could also be influence. I mean, who knows? Unfortunately, I'm not able to access the trade at the moment for this particular item. I would certainly put this up, you know, an easy 3, 4, maybe even 5 divine. Maybe with some different quality, or just leave it the way it is, because you can replace any of the quality on any of the jewelry. So we've barely been crafting. We've already got 2 like insanely good rings. So let's roll on this bone ring. I don't really care what the mods are. because we're just going to re-roll them anyways until we get something good. Remove all suffixes. Definitely want to skip, which is fine. Now we're way more efficient doing it this way because now we get to keep all these mods and we just re-roll them. So this is great. So we got 2 really good mods, 2 really good suffixes, and a bad suffix. We don't care about regen rate on minion builds for the most part. And let's see what we get as a prefix. Prefixes are pretty bad. I'm okay doing another prefix because it's not necessarily... The Betrayal Mana Craft does not necessarily increase the value of a bone ring. It can, but it's not the end of the world. It's like icing on the cake. You don't have to have it. The cake is good enough. So we got evasion rating. That's pretty awful. At this point, I want to protect my suffixes. And so I'm going to skip this, or I'm going to go ahead and do this and spend the very, very rare currency to make sure that I keep my suffixes, because the minion movement speed is a very nice suffix. I'm going to add an incubator, and then we have a chance to reroll all of our prefixes. This is where this ring could be mediocre at best to really insane. We could get mana, T1 life, and T1 minion damage. Suddenly, this ring went from 15 chaos to 5 div in one button.
Allow me to take my rune hammer.
It's absolutely terrible. It's so bad. Take the item. I never want to see it again. We're back to rolling. That was ugly. Oh, that was so ugly. I don't ever want to see that thing again. Disgusting. All right, we got another chaos ring. So here, because I just want to get rid of these mods or change them into something else, I'm not willing to spend. I don't care what the next craft is, and I'm not spending rare currency on some BS. So we skip. And when you skip, it forces you to do the next craft, and it makes that craft cost more artifacts. So keep that in mind. That's why I say don't try not to skip too much. All right, let's reroll our suffix here. 18 dexterity. Pretty bad. We're skipping again. We're re-rolling again. 50 strength. Not bad. Re-rolling prelicits. Re-roll modifiers. We're re-rolling again. I don't want to do that. Increase the level. This isn't worth it because the craft is dead. We've gone through all of our crafting options and we've come out with pretty much nothing. You might be able to sell this 5 chaos, maybe. It's got really good fire damage to attacks. Okay-ish life, really good strength, and some rarity, which is not super valuable. It's definitely worth selling stuff for low amounts of chaos to start building up your wealth. Especially early game, every single chaos you get is really nice to have. So another thing that I want to go over is making your items presentable, right? To a certain degree. And what I mean by that is if you have an open mod slot, craft something in there. Craft the best mod. Like, if you can. Right? So if you have an open prefix, craft non-channeling. If you have an open suffix, craft hybrid LE chaos res. If you have armor or weapons, throw some armor scraps on there. Throw some blacksmith whetstones. You want to maximize the attractiveness of your item, and it stands to reason that if you invest quality into those items, then they will thus be more attractive versus anything else that anyone looks at. And so it's just a short little tip. If you can, really do try your best to quality, fill out the gaps if you want to. I think it's a very important part of selling your ROG items. So if you have some good mods and you happen to have an open mod, just throw a simple craft on there. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. And, do your quality and, make your item look good. If you're walking down the street and you see a brand new good looking suit it makes you want to buy it, right? It's a good, presentable looking piece of clothing, and its attractiveness goes up, and that might equate to more sales. And I think it's an important point to make if you're going to be investing your time and energy and currency into Rog Crafting. So that's my introduction to Rog. That's all I have to offer you guys. This guide is meant to be quick access to the best bases at a moment's glance. If you want to learn how to, or if you want to learn how to run logbooks, there's a section for that. You got links to all the relevant websites that you're going to need. You got tips, tricks. You got the mods that you need, the bases that you need, and this should set you guys up super well for making currency in any fashion with Rog. So, stick to the advice that I give in the guide. You saw some of the crafts. It's not as daunting as you might think. And the more you do it, the better you'll get at it and the more money you'll make. So, get a little confidence, spend some currency, and make that currency back in spades. For every div I spend on rolling currency, I make 10. I'll make 10 times that in the items that I craft on Rog. Right? It's very rare that I lose money on Rog. It's almost pure profit. So get into it. Get into it. Start playing around with it. Start rolling. Make your mistakes and then learn from them, and you will make money. I promise you that. You will make a lot of currency. So that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed. I know it was a very long video. I will try to put timestamps for those that watch the whole thing, which is probably going to be literally 0 of you. Nobody's really going to hear this message. And if you stayed to the end of the video and you happen to be listening to me right now, in the comments, I want you to type, "I love geese," because geese are awesome and they're cute. And a group of them is a gaggle. So say something like that down in the comments so I know that you stayed to the end of the video. Guys, I appreciate y'all being here. I hope this guide helps you guys. And if it does, let me know in the comments below. And I'll see you guys in the next video. 3.26, baby. It's coming up. I'm so excited. Y'all be good. Take care of yourselves, and God bless.